So I'm going to throw this out there and be Mr. Ruffle Up Feathers. Okay, I'm going to say this because I believe this. If Jameson Williams does not get hurt, because after John Mechie got hurt, the star receiver, you can't lose 2 star receivers. You can't lose Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp.
That's true.
You can't lose Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It's not the same team. If Jameson Williams for Alabama doesn't get hurt, I think Alabama wins.
It was trending in that direction because Alabama they weren't controlling the game, but they were executing at a level which was going to allow them to win the game when he was still available.
Off to a good start.
I think he had 4 catches, 64, if I'm not mistaken, and it's still early in the game when he gets hurt. And it was pretty clear Georgia didn't have an answer anymore. He was well on his way to 150 yards, 175 yards receiving, maybe even 200 yards receiving.
Which we saw in the first game. They were beating Georgia over the top.
That's exactly right. So to me, this is you have to go in order, okay? So Georgia's got the better team overall, Colin, but they don't have the best quarterback. So they're going to win the line of scrimmage. They've got more margin for error because they've got speed, they've got power, they've got a great roster. There's no doubt about that. So what Alabama was going to have to do was exactly what they needed to do and did in the SEC championship game, which was execute in the passing game. Allow Bryce Young to execute in the passing game. Protect him enough to get wide receivers open so that they can make plays in the back end. And when Williams left the game, they didn't have that because the young wide receivers failed miserably in their execution. They were not helping Bryce Young out at all, and Georgia took advantage of that.
Yeah.
So at that point, if you're just going down the list, what did Alabama need to do to win? Well, they didn't have the best rosters. They got to execute in the passing game. Now they lose their best player. So what do you have to do? You've got to get really creative in your play calling and in your play design in order to get guys like Slade Bolden and Brian Robinson the ball in places where they can produce because they're now your most reliant players. That didn't happen. Bill O'Brien last night really struggled as an offensive play caller for Alabama.
In the red zone, they're not very creative.
No, and that's been a problem for them all year. In fact, it's the reason why they lost at A&M.
Yeah.
Was because all things being considered equal, they failed on 2 different series inside the 5-yard line.
That's right.
In both scenarios where they were failing last night inside the 10 and in the scoring area and in that A&M game, they were getting man coverage against them, and he never started moving the formation, using motion, using jet motion to create leverage, never used mesh plays and pick plays in order to get people open. The one touchdown they did get, Latu, the tight end, just had to shove the Georgia defender down. He just 2-hand shoves him down. In the Pac-12, there would have been 17 flags land on him, but in that game, they were letting him play. But, Colin, it was a massive failure from a play calling perspective for Bill O'Brien. If I'm an Alabama fan, I'm hoping that he gets an NFL opportunity because the 2 offenses that we saw last year, the one that won the national championship, and this year, the one that fails, and that they're not even close. Now, granted, the personnel is different, and I will give you that. There's no doubt about that. The creativity of the play calling and the movement of the formation in order to get the playmakers the ball in space was vastly different between Steve Sarkisian and Bill O'Brien.
No question.
Last night, Bill O'Brien was using an antiquated, old-school, static type of offense that was not going to work against Georgia. And I was frustrated for Crimson Tide fans when he was just giving token runs. It's like, well, that's a throwaway play. If you're not going to use misdirection on your run game, if you're not going to use other elements of trying to mess with the eye discipline and the visuals of what the defense is looking at, and you're just going to hand the ball off to say that you did on first down into the middle of the defensive line?
They did it a lot.
And so, I thought Bill O'Brien really struggled last night. And Bryce Young was trying to overcome all of that. The injuries, the poor play calling, the poor play design, and he couldn't do it.
By the way, I love Bryce Young. That kid that from the minute you can tell, I looked this up. It's not like I, did investigative work, but his dad has like a master's in something. And it's like, you can just tell that family functions at a high level.
Oh my gosh. How calm he was last night.
Any quarterback that doesn't think as fast as Bryce Young has 6 picks. I mean, they were on him and by the way, I'll say this about Georgia's defense. That is the best closing speed of a front 7 I've seen, and that includes every Saban defense. They banged on Bryce Young, and he dirted it, threw it away, moved. That kid's ability to make a decision. Russell Wilson has some of that. You'll see this with the Aaron Rodgers.
It's the ability to process information quickly
Instantly.
and then still execute. I mean, he was still throwing the ball really, really well. Now I want to give Georgia a lot of credit here. Let's talk about that Georgia defense.
Oh, Lordy.
The old adage is, from a coaching perspective, is that you've got to run away from power and at speed. Yes. Okay, offensively, this is what you're trying to do, whether it's in the passing game or in the running game. Here's the problem. Georgia is both more powerful than you and faster than you at the same time. Yeah. And so that's why it became very apparent that it was going to have to be all on Bryce Young's shoulders, and they were going to have to attack the middle and the seams of the defense, and they weren't able to do it. That defense for Georgia was fantastic. It was fun to watch because they played hard every snap.
Joy said this, just trust your eyes. The hits, the violence and the hits by Georgia, I mean, like knocking Alabama guys.
That's right.
230-pound running backs, bang, backwards. It was like, whoa, okay. Whoa, Oklahoma doesn't hit like that. Ohio State doesn't hit like that. People aren't hitting like that in the rest of college football.
Joy, you're exactly right. And when you trust your eyes, you also just look at the line of scrimmage. Which team is owning the line of scrimmage? Yep. And Georgia owned the line of scrimmage. So it wasn't just the closing speed. It was also the power, and that combination is very difficult to beat.
Let me throw this out there. Now, I'm pretty perceptive. The ability to see, it's almost X-ray eyes. I can see
X-ray eyes.
I can see around corners.
You can, okay. Well, then that wouldn't be X-ray. That would be like a telescope. What are they? A telescope or whatever it is.
Saban was unusually content. The big smile after the game, and as if to say, "Kid, I'm handing you the baton. I'm not long here, and if anybody's got to own this conference, you're my best friend in the conference."
I see. I viewed it totally different.
Okay.
I thought the same thing about his overall demeanor after the game, even in the press conferences afterwards.
Oh, it was wonderful.
When he sat down, if you haven't seen it yet, he sits. Bryce Young and Will Anderson are both with him, and then they excuse those two players. And before he does, he says, "Hold on, sit down for a second." And he says, "This game will not define these two young men."
Yeah, it was
wonderful. It was a wonderful answer.
Oh, he seems really content. It was like almost.
I don't think it was an acknowledgement of his relationship with Kirby as much as it was an acknowledgement that he knew exactly and knows exactly how much it's taken from a recruiting perspective to get a roster that can beat a team of his that is not nearly what it has been over the last few years. This is a young Alabama team, a very young Alabama team. Folks, they are miles. I don't want to exaggerate. 1 mile, not miles. 1 mile ahead of everybody else in college football going into next year.
Yeah.
They've got the best offensive player, the best defensive player on their team. This was always a young team. They needed a transfer. They got it from Jameson Williams, and that kind of solidified the passing game for the young Bryce Young. They've recruited incredibly well. He knows that he's not going anywhere, whereas Georgia, this was their year. They had to, if they weren't beating this Alabama team with the roster that they have.
Same thing with Edo and LSU.
That's a great point.
That was the year.
They had to do it.
Yeah, they had like 9 good NFL players. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you get, Alabama does it every year. There was a Clemson team like that. I think the second one was it Trevor Lawrence. You felt like, well, he's leaving.
Well, no, it was, remember, I believe, my history may be incorrect here. I believe Clemson played Alabama twice in a row for the national championship, both with Deshaun Watson. They lost the first one where Bama had to kick the onside kick, and then they won the second one. And that one, it was like, hey, you better beat him now because Deshaun's an older player.
Yes.
They were able to then beat him a second time in a championship game with Trevor Lawrence and Trevor Lawrence's freshman year. But I get what you're saying.
All right, let's pivot off that. Some probing questions. Now, are you ready for these?
I would love.
Don't duck any stuff.
Okay,
you go to a lot of these cream puff shows and it's layups. It's not here.
Hard J. No. Big J journalism.
That's right. A couple of journalists. You got Mike Wallace.
Well, Joy
and Chris
is definitely a journalist. Verdict's still out on you, but fire away.
Okay. Jim Harbaugh, if he's got Michigan in a terrible spot, you're out of the hiring cycle. If Harbaugh is bitter about that whole contract cut, and he says, I'm gone, you give it to Josh Gaddis and cross your fingers. The coordinators, the best ones are all gone. Position coaches, best one. Michigan's in a tough spot here, and I think Harbaugh's 50-50.
I don't know about his status. You've asked about a couple of different things there.
Right, unpack it.
I don't know whether he'll go or not. I'm 50-50 on that as well. I've tried to talk with people in the know. I don't know if he's going to go or not. If he does, I don't believe it will be because of the contract situation. I don't think he harbors ill will about the contract situation.
All right, so you don't think it?
I do not think that at all.
Okay.
If he leaves, I think it would be because college football has changed drastically.
Well, and very quickly.
In the last 2-3 years. Now with NIL and the one-time transfer, not that these coaches are, woe is them or anything. They've got great jobs, but it's just different. It's hard to manage rosters. It's hard to recruit your own players constantly. Now you've got to recruit the transfer portal. Now you've got to have a kid sit in your living room and be like, hey, can I get a State Farm deal? And you're like, it's like Matt LaFleur doesn't have to do that. Everyone's like, well, the NFL, they have all these same things. No, they don't. The coach isn't being asked, can you get me a watch deal and a shoe deal and a car dealership?
Yeah.
It is different. And I think if he leaves, I think it would be more because of the changing structure of college football than the contract situation. Whether he leaves or not is interesting. And then you bring up, what would they do if he does? This is what I think is so difficult for them, is that they would be stuck. The name that I would look at would be like a Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Is he looking to try to get out of Iowa State before the Big 12 changes, or you go with one of the coordinators? That staff did a remarkable job.
If I'm Matt Campbell, who knows what the Big 12 is in 2 years? I would move to Michigan in 1 second.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But I know that they are so happy with their staff at Michigan. So it might be a guy like Josh
All right,
Gaddis
so I'm going to throw this out there again.
Please do. Come on.
Very controversial.
Spaghetti
I'm not
at the
afraid
wall.
of
Let's
that.
rock.
So LSU's got a new coach, and USC's got a new coach, and Oklahoma's got a new coach, and there's all these new coaches. Notre Dame's got a new coach. And I know Sooner fans think I don't like him. It's a bunch of nonsense. When Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma, I put him on twice a year. I've been watching Oklahoma since I was a kid. But I'm watching this transfer portal, and they're going to lose their star quarterback, their star receiver, a star corner. They're losing some people. Secondly, you're going to not only the best conference, but at best, you're now number 3 behind Georgia and Bama, and LSU's going to have better people your first couple years in the conference. I'm just saying, this transfer portal thing,
it's changed the game.
It feels like Oklahoma, and I'm not sure why. Am I wrong on this?
Well, I think that there's 2 different things that you're talking about, because I think that the portal impacts them quicker than the SEC move does. The SEC move is still down the road a little bit. It just feels
like they're losing a lot of stuff for a great program, or am I overvaluing?
I don't think that you're overvaluing that. In fact, I put out a way too early top 10 already for next year. They're not in it. And the reason Wake Forest is, Arkansas is, OU is not. And the reason is because I don't know how this is going to go. They've lost a lot in the transfer portal. Really good players.
Yes.
They're going to have a transfer quarterback come in under a brand new offensive coordinator. I know that Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Lebby are both individually very good. How does that mesh? Who's blocking in front of them? This has been a team that has relied on great running game for now the better part of 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know if that run game is going to be even close to what it has been. The defense has struggled over the last few years. We've known that. That's why Alex Grinch came in and tried to improve them. Now he goes with Lincoln Riley to USC. They're going from an offensive-oriented head coach to a defensive-oriented head coach. I just think there is a lot of unknowns with Oklahoma. I have no idea if this is going to work next season. I hope it works for them. I still believe that they are Oklahoma, and this is still a program.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Lot going on there.
Feels like to me USC is moving very quickly in key spots.
Well, so Jackson Dart enters the transfer portal, okay? And I'm sure you've talked about it a little bit. There is zero reason for a quarterback to transfer away from Lincoln Riley other than he lost his job.
Yes.
Because the track record for Lincoln Riley with quarterbacks is too good.
There's nobody else out there doing what he's doing.
At this point, it's unmatched when Jalen Hurts is going to the playoffs with the Philadelphia Eagles and Kyler Murray is doing what he's doing with the Cardinals. And my favorite, Baker Mayfield, has totally transformed the Browns organization, even though he gets no credit whatsoever on a show like this. I mean, I'm just saying that the Browns were a total disaster, and now they're actually a playoff feasible team, whether they're doing that or not. But I digress. The track record for Lincoln Riley is exquisite in the modern college football for developing players to go to the National Football League. Caleb Williams has said specifically he's looking for the place that's going to set himself up best for his next career in the National Football League. If Caleb Williams is legitimately looking at that and not just an NIL deal, he will end up at USC.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.